Hello, welcome to the pedigrees video. We're going to talk about pedigrees, obviously, and this video is made to help the students who are having the pedigrees and Punnett Squares exams that's coming up. So it will not be the regular upload series, but yeah, it will be just a quick video on that. So in this video we will be talking about just pedigrees in general, and then in the next video, like the next 4 or 5 years, we're going into in depth of autosomal dominant inheritance, autosomal recessive mode of inheritance, X-linked dominant, X-linked recessive, and maybe Y-linked. But Y-linked is pretty simple, so I'll just cover that within X-linked recessive maybe, but we'll see. So to start off, let's just draw a pedigree. I'm not going to go too much in detail, so I'm assuming that you already know how like a pedigree looks like. So, but I'll draw one anyways, because we are doing this topic. But yeah, this would just be a quick video, and then I'll formally introduce pedigrees in the actual series when I'll be recording from module 5, inquiry question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a logical order, right? This is just to help the students who are having exams right now. So I just want to be, I just want to get this video out to help them. Yeah, so this is a pedigree, and if I'm gonna shade this like so, I choose this one and I choose this one out of random. I just shade this father and I shade this daughter, and I'm sure you already know that a square means male, a circle means female, and then the shaded individuals, which is what I'm trying to depict here. The shaded individuals are the individuals that has the trait of concern, right? The trait of concern could be dominant, or the trait of concern can be recessive, right? So perhaps the trait of concern here could be hair color. Right, so hair color could be the trait of concern here, and maybe let's just say, if we're gonna be more specific, maybe it would be white hair color. Okay, and the trait of concern can take place in two forms, right? It could be autosomal mode of inheritance, or it can be sex-linked mode of inheritance. In this case, it would be more likely to be autosomal mode of inheritance. So let's just write that: autosomal mode of inheritance. Now, so for autosomal mode of inheritance, there are two subcategories, right? One of them is dominant and the other one is recessive. So let's just write that down. Autosomal So one of them can be dominant and the other one can be recessive. So one can be dominant and the other one can be recessive. Oops. So let's just explain this in more detail. So if our trait of concern is responsible by a allele that is dominant, right? So we have a dominant allele, and let's just assume that this dominant allele is responsible for a trait, which in this case would be white hair color. And we assume that white hair color was autosomal mode of inheritance. This means that since the allele that is responsible for our trait of concern, aka white hair color, is dominant, therefore we can call this mode of inheritance as autosomal dominant inheritance, or we can just call it autosomal dominant, right? So, and then obviously there are other types, which is sex-linked mode of inheritance, right? And similar to autosomal mode of inheritance, it can take place. It can be subdivided into two categories. These are dominant and recessive. And if you remember the nature of sex chromosomes, females have X and X, and males can be X and X, and males can have X and Y, correct? Sex-linked mode of inheritance is more complicated in the sense that there are two categories. So one category is X-linked, and the other category is Y-linked. So X-linked means that the allele that's responsible for the trait of concern is only present on the X chromosomes, whereas Y-linked is that means that the allele that's responsible for a trait of concern is only present on the Y chromosome. And since we're dealing with sex chromosomes here, the allele that is responsible by for the trait of concern that is inherited by our gametes, right, or eventually our offsprings, is in the sex chromosomes. We're dealing with sex-linked mode of inheritance, and both X-linked and Y-linked are sex-linked mode of inheritance, right? So these are part of a broader category, which is sex-linked mode of inheritance. Awesome. So if I'm going to make more room here, if you allow me, so I'm just going to increase the height like so, and I'm just going to put that as black. Okay, awesome. So before we finish this quick video, I'm just going to talk about briefly about the 23 pairs of chromosomes. So we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Right? And this equates to 46 chromatids. And essentially we get 23 chromatids from our mother and 23 chromatids from our father, right? And if you remember, out of these 23 pairs, 22 of these are autosomes. Right? We get 22 autosome chromatids from our mother and one sex chromatid, if you like, from our mother, right? And altogether that adds up to 23. And then same thing here, we get 22 autosomes and one sex chromosome, right? And then altogether that equals to 23. And then so this is the egg cell, and this is the sperm cell, right? It has 23 chromatids, 23 chromatids, and it has one if you like, one sex chromatid, and this has one sex chromatid. Right, so this sex chromatid coming from the mother could be only X, because mother is X and X, whereas this would this coming from the father could be X or Y, right? And then if you do the Punnett square, you realize that if you do the crossover, you have 50% chance that the offspring will be male, and 50% chance that the offspring will be female, as the offspring gets one chromatid from the father and one chromatid from the father and one chromatid from the mother, right? So if the offspring gets an X chromatid from the mother and gets a Y chromatid from the father, then the offspring will be male, and vice versa. If the offspring gets a X chromatid from the mother and an X chromatid from the father, then the offspring would be a female, right? So let me just erase that. Awesome. So the point here is that the offspring would have 23 chromatids from the mother, including one sex chromatid, which is always X, since females are XX, and 23 chromatids from the father, and the sex chromatid that the offspring could inherit could be X or Y, and altogether 23 plus 23 equals to 46 chromatids. And that equals to 23 pairs of chromosomes. Which is a human being, right? So this is the offspring, whereas so the offspring has 46 chromatids. The gametes each have 23 chromatids, right? So if and then if you remember, let's just draw a chromatid here, has what you call these. What do you think these are called? These are called locus, right? So those are called locus. And let me just label this. Let's call this locus 1, locus 2, locus 3, locus 4. There could be many more, okay? And each locus essentially has an allele that specifies for a gene. So let's just say that let's use this color. At locus 1, there's an allele that specifies for a gene, because an allele is an alternative version of a gene, and the genes would specify for a trait. And this trait would, for our example, since we're doing pedigrees here, this would be our trait of concern. So if you remember, our original trait of concern would be the white hair color, right? So this trait could be the white hair color. And the gene would be hair color, and the allele would be the allele that's responsible for the white hair color, which is just a DNA sequence, right? Just a bunch of nucleotides that's paired together. It could be like A, T, A, T, T, C, G, etc., right? And then that would be our white hair color, for example. So essentially, since this is a chromatid, there's only one allele, right, for that particular gene, hair color. So let's just say that the allele that's responsible for, just say that the allele that's responsible for the white hair color, let's denote it as little a, as like a recessive allele, for example, right? And then locus 2, it could be, let's just say, an allele that's responsible for eye color, right? Like green eye color. And let's just call that recessive as well, little g. And locus 3 could be, I don't know, it could be like skin color, for example, and let's call it there's a blue skin color, right? Doesn't really matter for our example, at least. So if you remember, just say this chromatid is an autosomal chromatid, for example, right? It's an autosome, and remember, a chromatid is basically a chromosome, so an autosomal chromosome. And this autosomal chromatid could come from the mother, and then we also have another one coming from the father. Oops, I'm gonna draw it a little bit better, even though I think you get the point, hopefully, right? And then at the same locus, since these would be we call it homologous pairs, this is also locus 1, right? Oops, I'm gonna try use the same color. This is like locus 1, locus 2, locus 3, locus 4, right? It's at the same part of the chromosome. Therefore, at this section, it would code the chromatid coming from the father. It will code for the same gene, because the same locus on homologous pairs would code for the same gene at the same locus. So since at this locus we coded for eye color, alright, we coded for eye color. It was, I think this was the white hair color, and then we used little a, and let's just say we have black hair color. But I'm not going to use black here. I'm going to use a different color, not white. Let's just say this. Oops, white again. No. Let's say that, and that's our black hair color, right? So, and then that was our eye color, and then let's just say that the father has an allele for blue eye color, and let's just say that's like capital B. Even though in real life it's little b because blue eye color is recessive, but for our point, let's just say it's dominant. And then skin color, let's just call this like red skin color, for example, and let's just say it's little b as well, right? Actually, I'm gonna change this to little b. So just call it little b, and then so these two would combine. These two chromatids will combine to form a homologous pair in the offspring, right? Because this chromatid will be present in the mother's gametes in the egg cell, and this one will be in the father's gamete in the sperm cell, right? Alongside other 20. This is just one of the 23 chromatids, and this would just be and this would just be one of the 23 chromatids in the mother's gametes, right? In egg cell. And this just in one out of the 23 chromatids in the sperm cell, right? And then when these two chromatids combine, they will form a homologous pair, right? And then at the same locus, let's just draw 4 here. We will have, what do we have? Little a, like this, G and B. G and B. And then for the one from the father, it will be capital A, little b, little b. Like that, right? And then remember these two alleles are for the eye color, and then these two alleles are for the I think we said it was the this was for the, sorry, these two alleles were for the hair color, and these two alleles were for the eye color, and then these two alleles were for the skin color, right? So this would be in the offspring's DNA, or how the offspring's chromosome look like, and therefore it has 2 alleles per gene, right? It has little a, capital A for hair color, little g, or this should be g as well, for eye color, and then BB for skin color. So yeah, so this is basically the basics of inheritance and the basics for pedigree for now. You don't really need to know like this part, but you do need to know it for other sections of the syllabus, and it really is the foundations of pedigree inheritance, right? So you don't need to think about this when you're doing pedigree questions, but it's helpful to understand what's actually going on when you're dealing with letters that's representing alleles, right? So yep, so in the next video we will talk about autosomal dominance mode of inheritance, and then the videos after that will be autosomal recessive, X-linked, dominant, X-linked, recessive. So yeah, see you in the next video.